Hello and welcome to the third episode for the iRacing high definition photo tutorials. In this episode I'll be showing you how to import your iRacing photos into Photoshop, add blur to your photos, and add some basic color correction as well. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the iRacing folder inside of our documents and get the two photos we took in the episode 2 and drop them straight into Photoshop. Now if you've never used Photoshop before, I recommend watching some tutorials, because if you don't know what any of these things do, or anything in, for that matter, any of these buttons, you're going to have a hard time following what's going on. So the first thing we're going to do is unlock this background layer by double clicking and then dragging it onto our background layer, is what we're going to call this one, making sure we've lined it up correctly. You can uncheck this visibility so that you can see, and we're going to also unlock this layer and actually call this one background. And I can't spell, so we'll just leave it at that. It's close enough. And we're going to change the properties here to difference and select the entire region, clicking on edit, copy merged, making sure we do select copy merged because copy doesn't work the same way. So copy merged, and then create a new layer by pressing the new layer button down the bottom right and pasting it, so you can just press edit, paste. Okay, so now that we've done that, we need to select the magic wand tool, and we're going to select the background area, the black area, and get rid of it. So we need a low tolerance value to do this, so I recommend starting at about 20 or something like that and working your way down, because I already done this episode about like 4 times. I've had to restart because I screw up with certain things. So I know 3 is the perfect number for me, but depending on the image's lighting and things like that, the number will change from picture to picture. So now that we've got an outline of the car we want to have in focus, we want to get rid of these little, I'm going to call them artifacts because I have no idea what they're called, but we're just going to get the marquee tool, press and hold shift, and then click and drag and deselect these areas, or actually selecting them. I don't know why I said deselect. And then so that we can delete these and they won't look stupid once we've completed our picture. So we can now zoom back out, click on the original image, layer 1, and then press delete. Now if you hide this layer, we can see that we've just got the cars and nothing else. So we no longer need layer 2, but before we do anything else we must deselect and then delete and change the properties back to normal. Okay, so now that we've done that, we've got our 3 cars and the background layer all separate, but you say that you want to just have 1 car in focus and these 2 blurred. Well, if we want to do that, now what we want to do is separate these 2 cars from this car, because if we just want this one in focus, we have to have 2 separate layers, otherwise it's just not going to work. So what we need to do is duplicate it by right clicking and clicking on duplicate layer, and then we need to get rid of this car here that we're going to say car 1, we're going to call this, oops, that wasn't a good enough selection, and deleting it, and then from this layer we're going to delete these 2 cars. So now that we have 2 separate layers, one with this car and one with these 2 cars. So what we're going to do now is click on the background layer, or whatever that is, whatever that says, and go up to filter, blur, motion blur, and we're going to change the distance, which is the strength of the motion blur, from about 50 to about 200 pixels. So you can see here that 45, you know, it's just starting to get it. 13, obviously you can hardly tell, and 2000 is just ridiculous. So I'm going to use about an 83. We'll go with 90. 90 will do. And once we've done that, we now need to blur the 2 cars here as well, which we could have done if we held down control and did both at the same time, but it doesn't matter because you can do these separately as well, which I just forgot to. So once again, motion blur and add the same amount, and now those 2 images are together and in the same thing, so it's just like that, all perfect. Okay, so now that they're all set with the blur, all we need to do now is crop out the little elements in the wing and windscreen and windows and all that sort of thing. So for that we need to grab out the pen tool for best results, because you can use the magic wand tool, but it doesn't always work out as well and it just becomes a big pain in the ass. So it's a lot easier if we just use the pen tool to crop out the areas. And so what we're going to do here is just click once, and then it's going to create individual like marker points. So if it's a straight line like this, you can just go all the way down, but make sure when you're cutting out curves that you kind of follow the curve, otherwise it's going to look a bit odd. So then once you've made your area and you've selected it, you've completed the point, you right click and click on make selection, and then click OK, and then press delete on the keyboard. And as you can see, that makes the background shine through and it is blurred, so it looks a lot better. Now I'm going to fast forward through this because it's going to take me about 5 minutes or maybe just under that, and so there's no point in you watching me do this for a long time. So yep, see you in a second. Done now, and that looks pretty good. So we can now begin to merge all these layers in order to apply the color correction. But before we do that, a good thing to do is always to save it, so that way if you don't like one color correction, you don't have to go through all the previous things again. So you can just save it as whatever, so I'm just going to save it as something like that. And then now I'm going to merge this layer down and merge this layer down as well. So now that everything is just one big layer. Now with color correction, there's a lot of things you can change. If you go to image adjustments, there's a bunch of things you can fiddle with, but the main things we're going to do is just changing the, increasing the contrast just a little bit, as you can see here. So we'll increase it by about 15 or so, maybe a little less. We'll go to 10, and then we're also going to change the exposure. We're going to add slightly more exposure, and then also you might want to throw in some saturation as well to make the colors come out a bit more. So that's obviously way too much, so we'll just increase it by about 10. And I mean, this is already looking pretty good, but if you want to go into more in-depth customization, you can always adjust the curves as well, and these always look pretty good, but these can be quite hard to change and alter around, so I'm not going to go and change these too much. But one final thing you can do also is go into selective color and change each individual color and to increase or decrease it. So I can completely change the way this car looks just by altering these numbers here. So there's a few things you can do, but I'm not going to go into too much detail, so you can have a play around with yourself. Not literally, but with these settings. So with that concludes the episode. Oh, and I've almost forgotten, make sure you save it as well. But when we save this, it's going to be huge because we've still got this at whatever that resolution was. Sorry, my voice is going 7680 something. So we want to go onto image and then click on image size, and then change this to 1920 by 1080, and then click OK, and it should auto resize with no edges. Okay, see how it's got these slight edges? What you want to do is press Control T, and that brings up the transform, and just increase it ever so slightly, just so enough that it moves. And it's not going to do it to me now, I don't know why. Come on, you stupid thing. There we go. Okay, so now we shouldn't have any silly little lines on the side. I don't know why it does that. It must be just the way it does it with the iRacing screenshots. But anyway, now we can save it as a PNG or a JPEG for forum use, and that way it's still within reason. Pretty small file size. See, that's only 400 and something kilobytes, and that's only a megabyte. So yep, that's our image here, all done and completed, and in less than about 8 minutes or something. I'm only going to guess the length of this tutorial is. So this concludes episode number 3 for the iRacing high definition photo tutorials. I'm not sure if there's going to be an episode 4, but I'm sure I'll think of something, or someone might remind me of something on the forums. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching these videos and learned a few things. Don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe as well, because I not only do tutorials, I'll upload some hot laps and things like that, and they're usually pretty quick. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and see you later.